All right, so this is number 2. And here, the first thing that should be done to isolate the radical is we should divide by -2. Right? We should be dividing by -2. So the error would be step 1 should be divide by -2, not add. Exactly, not add. So that's where their mistake is.
You didn't put that in a proper sentence, and they're under punctuation.
That's okay. It doesn't say you have to put it in a sentence. So I didn't even say should be. So square root of 2n minus 7 would be -2. Now, let's just keep going, but then I'm going to tell you why it's extraneous. If I square both sides, then this is 2n minus 7 is equal to 4. And I add 7, of course, and divide by 2. And I could say 11 over 2 or 5.5. 5.5 would be easier to check, right? So when I check it, I would be doing this, and then 2 times 5.5 minus 7, well, or -2 times that, sorry. So this is 11 minus 7 is 4. The square root of 4, we are only to consider the principal square root, the positive. So then -2 times +2 is not equal to +4. Yeah, so this is actually, for this question, the answer is extraneous, so then we would say no solution. Because it's extraneous. The one that's on the quiz is not extraneous. To be honest, the
So is it no solution or 5.5?
there's no solution, because remember with these type, after we get our answer, we plug it in, and if it doesn't work, it's extraneous. It doesn't mean we made a mistake. It just means it's an extraneous answer. It doesn't work. The one that is on the quiz is not extraneous. To be honest, probably this happened because the teacher was quickly, it wasn't me, but the teacher was quickly trying to make up a review that was like the quiz and chose something that didn't really work. Okay, so it's actually kind of a red flag back at that step when it said the square root of 2n minus 7 is equal to -2, because we would never have the square root equal to a negative. But to get rid of the -2 on the outside, we should have divided by -2, not added. That's the big thing that's going to be more similar to what you would see. Again, on this page, you are only going to need to answer 2 of the questions, not all 4. So if you're like, now that one confuses me, and I don't want to find someone else's mistake, don't do that question. Oh, hello. So we're going to add 10 on both sides, because the radical needs to be by itself before we square both sides. So now I have 5 is equal to radical a over 3. Now I square both sides. I cannot get rid of the 3 while it's under the radical. Then we have 25 is equal to a over 3. And we, of course, multiply by 3. And a is 75. Woohoo! And if I plug that in, 75 divided by 3 is 25. The square root of 25 is 5. 5 subtract 10 is -5. For the multiple choice questions, if those are the questions you choose, you need to show work. It should not just be like a guess. Like, oh, I'm just going to do all multiple choice so that it's a guess. I hope you wouldn't just leave your grade to chance anyway. When there's radicals on both sides, remember it's actually a little bit easier because we just start off with squaring both things, which just removes the radical on both sides. Everything is outside. Now we can do our normal equation solving. I'm going to add the 2 in to get it to the other side. And then we'll have a 2-step equation. We can add 4 and divide by 5 to get that n is 4. And so I look and I see, be careful on multiple choice also to make sure that you choose the exact answer. The little lines, little brackets around that, it's just the set notation that that's the set of answers that work. All right, so that is your first page. Again, you will only be required to do 2 of the 4 problems. If you want to attempt more problems, I will grade you on the ones that you get the most points on. So if you attempt 3 and 2 of them are perfect, then you have full points for that page. So these, we are not looking for decimals, which you might be alerted to when you see the answers for number 2. This is where we want to find our largest square root that divides, perfect square, sorry, that divides into this square root. So we're going to break 128 down as 64 times 2. It is also 16 times 8, but 8 would still have a 4 as a factor. So that's why we can't go there. The 64 is a perfect square. 8 comes to the outside. Radical 2 is left. So done. So when it is multiple choice, be careful because sometimes people see things and then they're like, ooh, 36 and 5. Yeah, 36 times 5 is 180. But that 36 is on the outside. So it might give you a cue that, oh, I could use 36. But then it's not a 36 when it gets to the outside. Square root of 36 is 6. And then the 5 is the one that does not break down. So again, be careful with the choices. There's lots of 6s and 5s, and we see a 36, but it's not the same. Okay? And then 2 times radical 126. So we need to break down 126 first, and then see if there's things that we can combine with what's in the radical. So 9 goes into 126. I believe that was the largest. So if I just start testing things, right, 9 is the largest one that goes in there. I don't have this memorized, friends. I don't have memorized that 9 times 14 is 126. I either break it down differently or I look at my perfect squares and just try dividing them in. Now that 2 that's on the outside is still there. When the 3 comes out from the 9, it can multiply with the 2. So then the final answer is 6 radical 14. And then for number 4, we would have to, kind of like this is 2 separate problems. The 216, we would do what we've just done. I might try 100. No, that doesn't divide into 216. Well, what about 81? No, that doesn't work. Oh, what about 64? No. What about 40? All the way down until we get to 36. 36 works. So 216 is 36 times 6. The square root of 36 is 6. And then we have a radical 6 there. What do we do with the x squared and y cubed? X and y, right? We divide the exponents by 2. So when I divide 2 by 2, there's an x on the outside, but there's no x's left inside. 3 by 2, there's a y on the outside, only a y, and then we just basically are putting these things together, and you might have done it all at once. But that's what your final answer should look like. So when you look at theirs, and I'm not, like their way of writing number 1, I mean, it's okay. I probably wouldn't have written it that way, but that's okay. But where we have an issue is there should not be, the x should be on the outside, right? So x should be outside, not inside. Because our work and their work might not be the same, it may not be as easy to say where or how they made their mistake, but it's going to be important that you give the correct answer and identify kind of what's different about your answer than their answer. Again, 2 questions on that page. And then only 1 question needs to be done on this page because quadratic formula takes a while. And if something says select all that apply, you should anticipate that there's more than one of the answers that are correct. And so quadratic formula is on the board. Remember, first we have to have it set equal to 0. So we would have to add the 6. And then opposite of b would be positive 9 plus or minus b squared. So 9 squared is 81 minus 4 times 4 times negative 63. All of it divided by 2a. So 2 times 4 is 8. So all that multiplying up there, some of you may put more of this in the calculator. That becomes that, 1008. And so this is 1089, which is a nice perfect square. So this becomes 9 plus 33 divided by 8, and 9 minus 33 divided by 8. So we have 42 over 8 and negative 24 over 8, which is the same thing as negative 3. And then if I do 42 over 8 and I divide that, right? So if I look at my choices also, like really the differences between some of those choices are just the signs. The 3 should be negative, and they didn't even like simplify this fraction. So that was this one, and then 5.25, so this would be A and C. If you
select all.
Yes, select all that apply. So there are 2. So if one of them is like before we simplify, before we divide. Notice that the signs should still be like the 3 is negative. If you did not change, if you used negative 9 instead of positive 9, then your signs are going to be wrong. That's how people get the wrong signs on that, is if they don't do opposite of B on the outside. So if all you give me is you circle the 2, even if they're the 2 correct ones, sorry folks, you gotta show me that you plugged it into quadratic formula. If you're having some trouble, you may be able to determine like, ooh, I must have gone wrong because I don't see any of my answers. So even though number 2 is there's not multiple choice or select all, that might seem easier just because the numbers are smaller and it's already set equal to 0. So opposite of b, negative b in this case would go to positive 2 plus minus negative 2 squared is still positive 4, minus 4 times 3 times negative 7. All over 2 times 3 is 6. So then what number did you come up with underneath here? So we'd have 88 before, I mean, like when I do all of that, it's 88. Now, this one is harder in that 88 is not a perfect square. And the only perfect square that goes into 88 is actually 4. So this is the same as 4 and 22. So 2 comes to the outside and 22 is left under. So I'd have 2 on the outside, 22 under, 6 on the bottom. And then, this is where this gets more complicated because it has more. These 3, if they can all be divided by the same number, we need to simplify. So this would be final answer 1 plus or minus the square root of 22 over 6. 3, yes, thank you. I was doing so well. 3. So that's our final answer. When it still has a radical, we don't need to try to split that up into 2 situations. So you can also see another reason for only asking you to do one of these is because the space on the page, we can run out of space pretty quickly. So if you do the first one or the last, whichever one you choose, again, you are welcome to do more than one, but if you feel very confident about it, you can choose to just do the one that's required. So get it in standard form first. Make sure we move that 42 over, or sometimes I just do this, make that minus and then put equal instead of rewriting things. So opposite of B, so positive 11 plus or minus 11 squared is 121 minus 4 times A, which is 3, times C, which is negative 42, all divided by 2A. 2 times 3 is 6. And then this big number ends up being 121 plus 504. So 625, which is lovely because that is a perfect square. So because that is nice 25, it's worth a try. Like if you don't know, don't just start trying to break it down. Like try, maybe it's a perfect square. So in this case it is, so it's 25. So we can do 11 plus 25 divided by 6. And 11 minus 25 divided by 6. So the one on the left, these are all x equals, of course. 36 divided by 6 is 6. This would be negative 14 divided by 6. And that's where we get that messier answer that as a decimal is all those repeating decimals. If we were doing it without like multiple choice, we could just leave that like negative 7 over 3. So of the ones chosen, of the ones we have there in our list, again, be careful with the signs. This would be B. Notice this one does not say select all. So you should only anticipate one answer being correct. For the next actual 2 pages in the review, you should do one of the graphs if you want to do both. Again, you can. To find x-intercepts, you can make the graph and then see where it crosses the x. But remember that to find x-intercepts, that's also the same as the solutions or the roots. So you could factor to find these numbers. Okay, you could factor to find the x-intercepts. But remember what it means. X-intercept, where does it cross the x-axis? Y-intercept, where does it cross the y-axis? In this case, the y-intercept is not going to be something that you see, but the y-intercept is always the c because the x is 0. So as soon as I look at the equation and I see 16 out here, before I even do anything else, I could say that that's 16 very quickly. And then if you are finding the x-intercepts by graphing, then really the graphing part, I would start with axis of symmetry. So even though that's not the order it's in, this is where I would start. So x equal negative b over 2a. So in this case, that's negative 12 over 4. So x is equal to negative 3. That's my axis of symmetry. So then on my graph, this is the line that things are going to be reflected across. How do I find my vertex after I have my axis of symmetry? Find y, right? We find the y that goes with that negative 3. Good. So we're going to be doing 2 times negative 3 squared plus 12 times negative 3 plus 16. If you're trying to do that and somehow it's coming out that the vertex is not on the graph, then something is wrong. Okay? There may be some points that you could plug in that won't be on the graph, like our y-intercept, but if I asked you to make a graph, the vertex is going to be there. And so when I do this, I get 18 minus 36 plus 16, which is equal to negative 2. So then I know my vertex is here at negative 2. And then you would want to do a couple more points to find out, like to get a better shape and to be able to answer what the x-intercepts are potentially. In this case, we will find those. So if I go one to the right and do negative 2 squared plus 12 times negative 2 plus 16, I get 0. So at negative 2, it's 0. And if I know that one's 0, his mirror image is 0. Those have zeros for the y. That means they are the x-intercept. Also, look where they are. They're on the line. So this is negative 4 and negative 1. Way back, I could have factored. Oh, I'm sorry, negative 2. Sorry. Phew. Negative 2. Way back here, I could have factored. And if I factored that, it would have been x plus 4 and x minus 2, or x plus 2. And that would have also given me negative 4 and negative 2. So that's another way to know those 2 points. And then if I want to make sure that my graph is even more accurate, if I use negative 1. So I'm just going to do negative 1. And what did that give you if you did that? 2 and 12, 2. What do we have, 2? Oh, this is not squared. I don't know why. This should not have a squared on it. So negative 1 and positive 6. Good. And I know, like you might say, like, I don't know how fast that's going up past here. Well, it should not be touching the y yet because the y-intercept is 16.
Where do we find the negative 4?
I found negative 4 because it's touching the x-axis at negative 4. So this point right here, or if I factor. You don't have to do both, but they do confirm that those are the right answers. So given that that one has a lot of parts, you might opt to do the other one that you graph and just find the axis of symmetry, 2 more points, not have to answer so many questions. You should all answer number 2. Okay, that's the multiple choice. So you're going to choose one and then tell why you picked it. You do not have to make that part of your life difficult, right? So I know that it should be opening up, or I could say that it has a minimum. You might say, well, why does that help me? Because that means I know it is not choice B, right? Because it opens down. And then remember the thing about C. This is the y-intercept. So which one of the other 3 is A, right? Okay, and the y-intercept is -1. So those are 2 reasons. You could also find the vertex and tell me that the vertex is right. Or you could find the axis of symmetry, right? So there's more than one way, but those are 2 easy ways, given the choices that we have. The other ones can't work because, well, B can't work at all because it doesn't open the right direction. And then on the other side, this is your other option for graphing. And so, again, even though there's no place that asks you for axis of symmetry, you don't want to just choose random numbers. So we would be doing -b over 2a first. So -6 makes 6. 2 times -1, -2. So we would have -3. And then if that's -3, I'm going to do -2 and -1. And then we have 3 times to plug those in. We plug them in and get 1, 0, and -3.
This one you don't need the calculator for.
You need the calculator. I'm just saying, you had a chance to work on this yesterday. You should be plugging them in.
If it's possible, if I take out.
It still comes up, yeah. And so then our vertex is at -3, 1. And again, even though we weren't asked for it, that axis of symmetry is going to help me, because then I can make a good graph using the idea that it mirrors. So 3, 1, -2, 0, and -1, -3. Now, should it surprise me that it's going down? Shouldn't surprise me, right? Because there's a negative sign with the front of the x squared. And then we'll mirror it to the other side. So again, to get those y's, I put those numbers in. So yes, you would use a calculator. And then I do the same thing with -2 and the same thing with -1. We should expect that it's going to open down because we see negative in front of the x squared. So here, I'm asking that you do answer 2 of these questions. These are actually easy questions. You might not think so at first, but after I show you a little bit, you'll be like, oh, that is easy. So if I ask for what are the x-intercepts, you're just looking, it's a graph. Where is it crossing the x-axis? -3, 0, and 1, 0. And if you just tell me -3 and 1, that's okay also. So you could give me the points, or you could, if you just said -3 and 1, that's okay. I don't really like seeing it in an ordered pair because it looks like it's a point. But
You need to put to 0 or you don't need it because I put.
you can put either of those things that I just wrote.
You see, you put like this, x equal,
Or if you say x equal -3, x equal 1.
Okay, that's I do. -3, I already put that in.
So, from some of our notes, we had that roots, solutions, x-intercepts, zeros, they are all the same thing. So if you remember when we factored, if I factored something and then I had to solve it, so if I had something like this, and I had to factor and solve, I did x minus 3, x minus 4 equals 0, because those two would multiply to be 12 and add to -7. And then to solve, they had to one of them has to be equal to 0. And then it basically just changed the sign. So this is just asking us to go backward. So you're looking for the opposite signs. Now, if you want, you can plug the numbers in, but it's way, like you're doing way extra. Right? So this is -5, so I want the ones that have +5. So nope and nope. And the 6 is positive, so I want the 6 to be negative. I want it to be x minus 6. That's it. Okay? So you're looking for the signs to be opposite. And number 3, they use solution instead of roots. And this is also why when you were just asking, how can I write it? And I said, you could write it like this, or you could write it with the zeros, because it means the same, all right? So again, we're just looking for the opposite signs of those. So the 7 needs to be positive, and the 4 minus 4. If you plug these numbers in, if you plug in -7 for both of these, this becomes 0 times -11. That's 0. If you plug in 4, it becomes 11 times 0. It's still 0. You don't try to plug them in at the same time. You just plug one at a time. But it's just basically change the sign. Now, yesterday I may have misspoke because I forgot what this question asked me. Okay? This question is asking the relationship between the solutions and the x-intercept. I was thinking about factors when I answered the question for someone. Yes, they're the same. Right. It's just different name for the same thing. All right, so it's just different name for the same thing. I feel like I might have said to someone, they're opposite, because we were just doing this. It's opposite from the factors. But it's the solution, root, x-intercept, they all mean the same. So they are interchangeable. By the way, my comment about showing work for the multiple choice, for like questions like 2 and 3, there's really not work to show. Like you don't need, I'm not trying to create work for you. And then you're being asked to do one of these 2 problems. It will not have a number in front. It will just have something raised to the power like what you have. Let's see, hello. So if I recall correctly, I got rid of this, and I made this like that, right? Okay. So for exponential, it's always going to be a good idea, even though some of the numbers may not fit, going -2 to +2 is a good plan, and that's not going to, I don't have my graph far enough down. Whew. So you can use that -2 to +2 for either of them, because that gives you an idea what it looks like on the left and the right. So 3 to the -2 would be 1/9 or 0.1 repeating. To the negative first, 1/3 or 0.3 if you use the calculator is what it's going to tell you. To the 0 power, 1, 3 to the first, 3, 3 to the second, 9. So negative 2 1/9 is just going to be close to the x-axis. Negative 1.33 should be just a tiny bit higher. I'm not going to be looking at that like, is it exact? And then 0, 1, 1, 3, and 2, 9. And then if I think third power would be all the way up at 27. So this is going up really fast. So it's going to come down here, hug this x-axis, and then over here, it's going up really fast. It should not do this. Okay, don't make it go down there, all right? And don't make it, do something like way out here. After the one that you plot to the right, almost straight up. So the base number is greater than 1, so that's the way we should expect it to look. For our other one, we're still going to use negative 2 to positive 2, but here I'm just doing 1/2 to the power. Remember that the negative exponent flips it over. So this is going to make this be 4 and 2. Even a fraction to the 0 power is 1. And then we have 1/2 and 1/4, or 0.5, 0.25. So now we'll see that it's bigger on the left side. Negative 2, 4, negative 1, 2, 0, 1. And then we got our tiny ones. Hold on. Halfway and halfway there. So then this is going to come up. And this is going to go this way. Again, you only need to do one of those, and you do not need to answer the question for number 3. A similarity would be that they're not linear, right? They're not straight lines. And a difference would be that exponential does not have symmetry, but I'm not going to ask you to answer that question. So just doing one of the graphs. So part A here is really just asking you for the axis of symmetry, because it's asking you how long will it take to get the maximum height. So on many of our problems that we practiced, that was just something we had to find, but they weren't asking us that question. Here, I'm actually asking you that question. So we would be doing negative 48 over 2 times negative 16. Go ahead and divide that. We get 1.5. And this is time, right? So this is 1.5 seconds. So it's answering the question, how long will it take to reach its maximum height? 1.5 seconds. I know it's seconds because this says feet per second. And then what is the maximum height? Now we need to find the y, or the h, or in this case they called it s, but same thing. So now we need to plug it in. So now I'm doing whatever I got for my first answer, 1.5 squared plus 48 times 1.5 plus 30, and 66 feet is what we should come up with. Again, you only need to answer 2 of the questions on this page, but you do, if you choose 1 or 2, need to do A and B. Or if you want to do A of one and B of the other, something like that. All right, so number 2, there's actually a typo on number 2, but we'll work with it the way it is because I didn't catch that before. And we still can. Oh, hello, hello. Where are you going here? How long will it take it to return to the ground? That means that we set it equal to 0. And factor if we can.